Hi everyone and welcome back to Valley View Living. My name is Megan. I'm a mum to 6 living in the country in New South Wales, Australia. And here on my channel I share all kinds of homemaking, some homesteading, and basically just keeping these people fed and keeping these animals fed. So there is a farm full to care for as well. Cows, pigs, chickens, dogs, cats. Is that everybody? I think that's everyone. So in this episode, I wanted to share with you 3 of my favorite nutrient-dense meals that we keep on rotation here in our home. These are all budget friendly and they're pretty quick to create as well. So the very first that I am going to share with you is honey soy chicken drumsticks. Now, the wonderful thing about making this marinade or this sauce from scratch is that you can customize it the way that you like it, the way that your family likes it. Now, for my kids, to keep it as a crowd pleaser, they like it more on the sweet side. So you can see I've probably got a good 1/2 to 3/4 cup, and I use tamari here. That's fermented soy style sauce, but it's actually gluten-free naturally. And then I am adding some butter into that, and that just gives this sauce a stickiness so that it clings onto the drumsticks more nicely and just makes it really tasty and yummy. So I've got some butter in there, I don't know, maybe 60 grams. And then I'm putting in honey to my family's taste, which for this amount of drumsticks works out to about 3 good tablespoons. Then all I have to add to that sauce is I have just stocked up on my dried spices and herbs. So to make it easy for myself on this evening, I'm just putting in some dried onion powder, some dried garlic powder, and what else have I got in there? That's probably it. You can also add ginger, which is really nice in there. And if I were making this more to my taste buds, I would be going more on the spicy side with lots of ginger. But I'm not going to do that tonight. It's mostly just that sweet tamari flavor. And I do prefer, I have done this both ways, especially if I'm in a time crunch. I won't actually reduce the sauce down on the heat first before I put it on the drumsticks. I will literally, you can just put the soy and the honey and the seasonings right over your drumsticks and bake them, and it works just fine. But I do like to cook the sauce like this if I have time first, just to make everything amalgamate better, and then I can pour it right over the top of these drumsticks and get them into the oven. Now, I do find this meal satisfying to cook for my family because it really fills the house with a delicious smell. It just gets you excited for dinner because it smells so good while it's roasting in the oven. And I tend to have kids lining up around the kitchen once they can smell that dinner cooking, and they'll be, "When's it ready, Mum? I can't wait." And that for me is a good feeling because I know I'm not going to get that crashing sensation. It's also a crushing sensation, isn't it? When you've put so much energy and time and even expense into making a meal for your family or your kids that they just pick at or they don't particularly enjoy. I try to avoid that, of course, as much as possible. But I do think that's a bit of a trap we get into, isn't it? As mums or dads or whoever does the bulk of the cooking in the house, we can kind of fall into this trap of only producing the family favorites over and over again, which means we're kind of limiting things for them and ourselves. But I don't know, what's the answer? We just want to get them fed, right? So all that to say, this is one of our family favorites, and it's one that I can also customize the sides of, so that makes it a bit more flexible in that way. But tonight, I really wanted to get some fresh, raw fruit and veg into the family. So for the salad lovers, I'm going to put together a very simple salad. We've just got some winter lettuce, some salad greens there. I'm going to put some thinly sliced red onion on top of that because I love red onion. And it's easy for people who don't like it to simply pick it off the salad. No worries. And I'm going to slice up some pickles, put that on the salad. What else am I going to do? I'm going to cut up some fresh apple and some fresh raw carrot as well. And I often do this. This is like a daily thing here for our main meal. It's just a picking plate of fresh raw fruit and veg. And this takes a lot of the pressure off me when I'm serving meals if I've got a young child or a picky child who doesn't want the vegetable side, that comes with the main. I can point them to these raw fruit and veg. And that way I feel like, hey, box ticked. They're enjoying it. I know it's done. It's taking the pressure off and everybody's happy. And that's something that my mum used to do for me. She would just say, hey, do you want the carrots cooked with us or do you want them raw tonight? And my brother and I would often choose to just have them raw before the main meal. And I really appreciate that because I think sometimes as parents we can forget how little autonomy children really have in their day-to-day life and choices. And if I can give my kids just that little bit of power over what they eat, for example, within the structure of having normal, plain, daily, nutritious meals being what is on offer, then I'm happy to do that. And even equally so, if they choose against this meal altogether, they're always welcome to have some yogurt. That is my go-to. If you don't want dinner, you don't want the meal, you can have some yogurt and you can put some homemade granola on that, and that's so fine. I call it good. I think this is one of those things when you have more than a handful of kids, you do start to let go of the control in some areas by necessity. Something that I love about having this meal regularly on rotation and also buying the best quality chicken we can afford is that I can then take the bones left over from this meal and I will rotate them back into a bone broth, which can then become the basis or the backbone or a complement to my next few meals. So I love having that kitchen cycle going, that kitchen flow, once you really worked out what you want to do. So then when I've got that broth cooking, I can easily reach for it to cook our rice in, just to get the nutrition up in the rice as well. So that's what I've done with this batch. You just replace the amount of water with chicken broth, add some salt and cook it as normal, and it just becomes even more filling that way. And that way I'm also happy for kids that choose to just have rice. I had one kid on this evening who just wanted the rice, which was cooked in chicken broth, and then had the honey soy marinade poured over the top. And because they are also having some apple and some carrot, I'm totally fine for them to choose that for their meal, and I just don't sweat it. Another day, another meal, and this one pretty much created itself. I had the veggie box delivery, so I had lots of fresh stuff hanging around, and I just felt like I hadn't been having enough veggies lately, and I had a pot full of hot chicken broth simmering on the cooktop. So I decided to go ahead and just put together a veggie soup. And it wasn't a particularly special soup. You know what I mean? You have soup that is really delicious and you've used a recipe for it, and it is a specific soup. This one was just, a kitchen sink soup, a clear out the fridge soup, where you're just going to cut up all the veggies that you've got, dice them up. I used onions and carrots and zucchini and beans, and that was about it. I'm just going to saute them off in some butter and some olive oil and add some seasonings that I have. So I decided to go with paprika in this one, just for a bit of a different flavor, something a little bit stronger, because I know with just vegetables, for me, I am a real, I guess I would say, protein lover. So I did actually add some cannellini beans into this soup as well, so that I knew it would have a bit of a protein hit in there. And of course, it's also going to have the chicken broth as well, just to make it a bit more satisfying to eat. So the way that I customize a meal like this to make sure that my picky people will still eat and I won't have to make a different meal later or something separate is that I'm going to fry up some crunchy, crispy, salty, yummy sourdough croutons. And I've also got that pot of plain chicken broth still simmering there. And I'm going to have plenty left over after getting this soup simmering away. So then if I have a child who doesn't want all the veggies, doesn't want the veggie soup, then I'm going to offer them a bowl of chicken broth. And also, now that I have teens, they can be super helpful, and they might go and get some rice noodles going, or some of those amazing organic soba noodles that I buy regularly, the Hakubaku brand. They might boil some of those up so that the children who don't want the veggie soup can simply have some, it's our version of 2-minute noodles. So we'll boil the noodles, pop them in the bowls, and then just put chicken broth over the top. They can season it up with tamari. They can add some of this sort of seasoning that I'm going to put in the soup. They can add a little bit of onion powder, garlic powder. If you really want that 2-minute noodle hit, you can add a little sprinkle of coconut sugar, because that's what makes 2-minute noodles addictive, is that they've got, sugar in them, basically, and different types of sugars. So that way it's really easily customizable to all the people that I have in my home. There's 8 eaters, and my kids very much are not backwards in coming forwards. They all have their own personalities, and they're definitely all happy to express them. So yeah, if they don't want the veggie soup, all that to say, they can have the homemade 2-minute noodles. They can just have chicken broth with salt and croutons, and everybody will be fed and everybody will be happy. But also mum gets to make a meal that she really likes. I really like veggie soup. I don't want to never have vegetable soup again because I've got children who it's not their favourite. So this is how I make sure everybody's happy, everybody's fed. In many ways, I actually prefer making croutons like this when I know that a crowd is going to want something like buttered toast, as in soup or whatnot, because I can actually cut all the bread up, I can fry all the bread up, and it doesn't have to be hot at once. It can just sit, and then people can have the crouton as they need. A whole bunch of buttered toast to serve a crowd when they want it hot with soup, well, it can get kind of annoying because you have to juggle it for them and all that kind of thing. And croutons are just yummy. They can even keep if there's any left over, but there never is. People love these. They're just so tasty. So what else is happening on the little farm right now? I tell you what, my cows are eating me out of house and home. Their feed bill is enough to keep me awake at night. So we have to make some heavy decisions going forward. The reality is that we overstocked our paddock. When we first moved in, we were just so excited to live out those homestead dreams, I suppose, something that we'd wanted for so long, that we bought too many cows. So we bought a cow who had a calf at foot, and we bought a heifer and a steer. Now, we did actually raise that steer up for the freezer, and he has been butchered, so that worked well in terms of not having to feed him over the winter months. But then we also had a new calf arrive from a neighbouring property who stayed on our property and of course has been eating the grass as well. We negotiated with that neighbour a great price to purchase this cow, but again, it was not the most sensible decision, because even though she is a really amazing price, she is eating down a paddock that is just not big enough. I guess our paddock is probably between 3 and 4 acres, and it at the moment sustains a lactating and possibly pregnant dairy cow, her calf, another heifer who may be pregnant, and then a heifer calf as well. It's just too many over the winter. So we're having to feed them grain and hay to help them keep condition on over these really cold, short days. Now, I guess spring is not that far away. It's the end of July now. So what we've got August to get through, then it will be, by the calendar, it will be spring in September, but I'm not really sure of the patterns on this property yet. I'm actually new to this region of Australia. I spent a lot of time in Tasmania before now, and then some time in Queensland, and those are immensely different to the climate where we live now, and I'm just not sure how long it's going to take these paddocks to pick up the grass growth. So I just don't know how long we'll be buying these huge bales of hay for. And let me tell you, inflation just knows no bounds, does it? It affected so many parts of being an Australian. Not only has it affected the meals that we buy, but it has absolutely affected stock feed prices. It's amazing to reflect on how when I first had chickens, probably 20 years ago, a sack of organic grain was, we were scraping together maybe $21, $22 to buy that sack of organic grain. And of course that was expensive then. But now that same sack, and this is actually made by the same company in the same place 20 years later, that sack of organic grain is $55. And that is just such an immense amount of money that I guess I'm facing the reality that a homestead is an expensive way to live. And I always knew it wouldn't save money to raise animals for the table. I knew it would not save money, but I also feel that in the long term, it will allow me to have a higher quality of food for the same price that I'd have to pay at the supermarket, if that makes sense. So, these are the winter thoughts of a little hobby farmer. Winter stock feed prices, what are going to give you nightmares. And it's all good. It's a good problem to have. We will sort this out, absolutely. Animals are just a wonderful asset. So we'll just have to manage them sensibly in the days to come. So this is the last meal I'm going to share with you in this video, and it is so simple and so yummy. But the way that I'm going to bump up the nutrition in this meal, which is basically just tacos, is I'm going to choose a certain style of corn tortilla that is good quality. So the corn is organic and the corn flour is soaked in a way that makes it really digestible and good for you. And then I'm also going to use a beef mince mix, which don't tell my family, this is 100% top secret, but it has some liver in the beef mix. And it is in such a small amount, I think it's 5%, that you can't taste it. It tastes exactly the same as beef mince, but they don't know they're getting a beef and liver taco. So that's just between you and me. We're not going to tell them anytime soon, because everybody in the family loves this meal. And it's really yummy. I like it much more than the sort of the shop taco shells. I love those shop taco shells too, of course. They're yummy, they're tasty, they're crunchy, they're good. But they always make me feel a little sick in the stomach after eating them. These ones don't. There's no veggie oils in these actual tortillas. So I'm just going to lay them down flat on the pan in a little bit of oil. I don't want tons of oil. I've probably got a little too much there. I put the cheese on first so that it will melt, and then some of that beef mince mixture on the top. And then I've just got to fold it up into a taco shape. Take it off the pan, and I'm going to let that sit for a moment. Then I can sort of open it up and add whatever I want inside. Diced tomatoes, diced onion, jalapenos, sour cream, all that good stuff. And for this one tonight, I want it super easy, so I'm going for a completely, possibly offensive culture fusion here, and I am putting some kimchi, spicy fermented veggies, into my taco. And believe it or not, it's absolutely delicious, so don't knock it till you tried it. Thanks for joining me today. If you've enjoyed my content, please like, comment, or subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye!